Bonjour mes amis, c'est moi, Wulf, et aujourd'hui je suis à Jamestown en Virginie pour un événement qui est vraiment splendide qui s'appelle Military Through the Ages. Hello, it's Wulf and I'm here for a splendid event at Jamestown called Military Through the Ages. I hope you enjoy. Ce week-end, je représente un soldat français au début de la Deuxième Guerre mondiale avec le 92e Régiment d'infanterie. So this weekend, I'll be portraying a French soldier in 1940 at the beginning of World War II with the 92nd Infantry Regiment. My father is joining me this weekend in the guise of a 1940s reporter to help me document the event. In addition to talking to visitors about my own portrayal, I hope to visit many of the other reenactors and tell you about them in the chronological order of the military timeline. In this first video, I will visit the cold steel groups, historically when people fought with edged weapons. The earliest group is the ancient Greeks. So let's see what's hopping with the hoplites.
So we are the Greek Phalanx. We are the largest ancient Greek reenactment group in the whole of North America, and we represent the ancient Greek citizen militia forces from roughly the 6th and 4th centuries BC. So this includes certain famous battles such as the Persian Wars, being the Battle of Marathon, Thermopylae and Plataea. We also have the Peloponnesian Wars and some more of the legendary wars like the Battle of 300 Champions. Ancient Greek forces are not like our modern soldiers in the sense that they were not professionals. These men had to outfit themselves in their own equipment at their own cost, and every male citizen from the age of roughly 18 to 60 was eligible for military service. Apart from serving in the army, these men were working class to upper class people. They worked as a farmer, they worked as a potter, they owned estates, and it was upper middle class to aristocratic fighting upper middle class and aristocratic. Fundamentally, we are heavy infantrymen adorned with a shield called an aspis and a primary weapon called a dory, which is a double-ended spear. We fought in what is called a phalanx or a phalanx, which is essentially an overlapping shield wall, typically 8 men deep. We would have essentially marched up, sparred a little bit, maybe clashed into each other, and these battles wouldn't have typically lasted very long. Once your side started to break, you would likely surrender. We know from Thucydides that casualty rates are relatively low in these battles, around 5% on the victor's side and 15% on the loser's side. But we're not trying to annihilate them, we're not trying to wipe them off the map. These are also our trade partners and our potential military allies later on as well. And as most of our hoplite battles, it is middle to upper class fighting middle to upper class for that land, for their polis, and when they returned home, they would resume their regular citizen activities of farming, blacksmithing, baking, pottery, and stuff like that. So citizens fighting citizens for their city-states.
Of course I asked to hear the rhombos, an ancient Greek bull roarer. Here's the contact information for the Greek Phalanx, and I'll put the links in the description below as well. Just by walking a few feet, we can leave the ancient world and enter the medieval era. Now what's this next camp? Oh my goodness, it's Charlemagne's army! Well, as a Frenchman, I'm delighted to meet up with my Frankish forebears. It's rather amazing to meet up with Carolingian living historians. This place is sure bustling with activity and is pretty noisy. It'll make it a bit difficult to interview people here.
Well, here we are in the year 804, and Charlemagne has come to the border of the kingdom of the Danes to meet with the Danish king to work out a peace treaty. We are Scara Karoli. We represent military and domestic life in Charlemagne's empire from 768 to 814. We have everything from armor and weapons to cooking, blacksmithing, silversmithing, fiber arts, weaving, you name it, we're doing it here in Scara Karoli, promoting Charlemagne and making sure that the public knows just what an important role Charlemagne played in the history and the history of the world.
It's great to learn how things were done back in the 800s, but I'd like to learn a little bit more about silversmithing.
My name is Crowder Badgerbeard, and what I am doing this weekend is a bit of smithing of all kinds, both hot work and cold work. So the cold work I am doing, for the most part, is working with copper, and I had finished up earlier a copper belt to have just delivered to our carpenter friends. I am about to set up my forge for hot work here, and get a piece of wood and put them together, but the bellows then will blow through the hole in the square into my fire. So here is a crucible that I will then use to throw in silver ingots like this one here that have been cast from an ingot mold, and that fits in just like that. The crucible goes into the fire. The fire is stoked with a bellows. The silver chunks melt in the crucible. So this is a broken mold made out of soapstone that is used for casting brooches, like this one here, and the one around my neck. Do you have any questions?
Just your contact information. Oh, here it is. Scara Karoli on Facebook. Oh, well, I'm sure I know who's going to be next. It's the fearsome warriors of the sea, the Vikings. This group of Viking living historians is called the Ostvik Vikings.
Hello, we are the Ostvik Vikings. We represent Sweden in the year about 980. We're getting ready to defend ourselves to protect our king against the Danish invaders. And after this battle, our king, King Eric the Victorious, will start his dynasty in the country of Sweden. And so we have our entire camp here. Everything that you see is all based off of Birka, Sweden, and that's our village that we're portraying.
Birka is regarded as Sweden's oldest settlement. Not much is known about King Eric the Victorious, but he is considered the founder of Sweden and maybe the forefather of all the Scandinavian kings. I was very impressed by the Vikings' camp, their wonderful fire pit, the amazing striped tents, the historic armor and helmets, the beautifully painted shields, camp life, and examples of objects used by the Vikings. And here's contact information for the Ostvik Vikings. I must admit I wasn't sure who the Southern Uí Néill were in 1006. As I discovered, they were Irish who were rivals of the Vikings. The Southern Uí Néill lived north and west of Dublin. The Irish are camped right next to the Vikings here.
I were the Southern Uí Néill in 1006 at the Fair of Taltu, which is the equivalent of the Irish Olympics.
The Fair of Taltu was actually revived for a time in the modern era, with the last games held in 1932.
And we're here fighting the Vikings and just trying to have a good time.
The Irish fought off the Viking invaders for many years. The military timeline was held right after St. Patrick's Day, so many people were interested in finding out all about these ancient Irish warriors. Here's the contact information for the Southern Uí Néill. It's great to see the Vikings and the Irish, these two historical rivals, in camp so close to each other here at the historical timeline. If you're of Scandinavian or Irish ancestry, you might have a good time checking out living history with these two awesome groups. Well, next is the Company of Little Dunmow, and they're portraying the First Barons' War. At this time, bad King John is on the throne of England, so I think what these people could use is someone who had robbed from the rich to give to the poor. I wonder if anyone in this village fought along King Richard in the Third Crusade.
So my name is Levi, and we are the company of Little Dunmow. We represent a small village in Essex called Little Dunmow during the Barons' War, which is around about 1215. So you might be familiar with Magna Carta and King John and all that kind of stuff. It's really important for American history. One of the really cool things about Little Dunmow is we're not top heavy. We only have two knights, one lord of the manor and a household knight. We want to show an accurate cross-section of medieval society. So most of us are on the bottom. I'm a servant, I'm a squire. We have other people in the household, we have sergeants, we have we want to show what a medieval village might look and have that community. Normally we actually have children. All the people who have children who weren't able to make it to this event, and we left ours behind so we could actually be responsible for stuff here. But normally we have 20 children running around. It really does end up feeling quite a bit like a medieval village.
The company of Little Dunmow had a very interesting assortment of shields, chainmail, swords, and other weapons and helmets on display. Levi was good enough to share some footage with me of one of their members explaining how to use a crossbow.
So this is the typical crossbow of the early 13th century. This is a belt-spanned crossbow. By this point, the power of the bows was getting higher and higher, and it was getting to a point where typical just muscle power wasn't able to span them as well. This is about 200 pounds, and you can span this by hand, but the real question is how often could you do it? And if you got hurt while trying to span your own bow, you're now ineffective. So what they did is they combined a recent innovation of the stirrup with a spanning belt. And the spanning belt works like this. You put your foot in the stirrup, much like a horse, and simply bend down and stand back up. And that allows you to use the largest muscles, the most powerful muscles on the body, your legs. And by that point, you're now loaded, and you simply withdraw a bolt, put it in there, and then you pull the trigger, and that just releases it.
I had a wonderful visit to Little Dunmow. I wasn't even arrested by the sheriff of Nottingham, so that was a good thing. And here's some contact information for the company of Little Dunmow. Next up is La Belle Compagnie. What is so entertaining about the military timeline is that it is possible to take just a few steps and find yourself 200 years later in time. Of course, as a French soldier from 1940, I have no business being in the middle of the 100 Years' War either. But neither do these Greek hoplites nor these modern spectators. But that's all part of the fun. Oh, I hear music, and I know what it is. Those are shawms, the ancestor of the modern oboe. One of the most impressive historical impressions at this military timeline was this 15th century knight in full armor.
We are La Belle Compagnie. We are the household and military company of Sir Geoffrey Peel, a fictional knight of 1418 in England. We are here, depending on who we talk to, doing a fair with a deed of arms, or we are doing a deed of arms with a fair.
Tax collector /
Here we have hucksters, people selling food and used clothing. We have archers. We have fighting men. We have the hall where Sir Geoffrey will entertain. And we have his man of business, or factor, who's here to do trading in wool and cloths. Which is the basis for most of England's economy.
It's marvelous to experience a bit of the year 1418. It's just after the pivotal Battle of Agincourt in 1415. The 100 Years' War was fought between 1337 and 1453. This war was fought between the kingdoms of France and England. The Burgundian state was an ally of the Kingdom of France. Then the Kingdom of England. Well, no, then it was back to the Kingdom of France. Those Burgundians could just not make up their minds. And here is contact information for La Belle Compagnie. Wir haben jetzt das Teufels Alpdrüken Fähnlein von 1529. In 1529, Suleiman the Magnificent, Emperor of the Ottoman Turks, is marching on the eastern edge of Christendom and is threatening Vienna, the capital of Austria. But to Christendom's defense comes the Devil's Nightmare Regiment.
Morgen! This is the year 15 and 29. We are das Teufels Alpdrüken Fähnlein, the Devil's Nightmare Regiment. Our name comes from an old French saying, the Landsknecht thrown out of paradise cannot enter into hell, for he would make the devil afraid. We like this saying, so we are the devil's very nightmare. As I said, it is the year 15 and 29. We have left Rome about a month and a half ago. We are in the Alps, heading back towards, well, we were heading back towards the Empire. But word has come that Suleiman is massing on the eastern border, Österreich, near Vienna. And so the slow march home has become a race through the Alps to get there first.
The Devil's Nightmare Regiment certainly has amazing uniforms. And I like how their camp is laid out. You have to enter through a tent to get to the year 1529. There were maybe 100,000 soldiers in Suleiman's army besieging Vienna, and this regiment of mercenaries was part of just 17 to 21,000 defenders. But they managed to save Vienna from the invaders. I really enjoyed hearing about the weapons on display at the Devil's Nightmare Regiment encampment. The soldiers still mainly carried pikes. They were the Reisläufer. However, more and more gunpowder weapons were coming into use. At first, 2 soldiers had to work together to fire a gunpowder weapon, but eventually, just 1 soldier could do this. I quite enjoyed seeing an example of an arquebus, a matchlock firearm used at the time. The Siege of Vienna is a fascinating battle, and I was glad to learn about it at the military timeline. And here is contact information for the Devil's Nightmare Regiment. The final group I'm going to visit in this first video are the reenactors of the Roanoke Colony. This is odd, there doesn't seem to be anybody here. They're all missing. What does it say on this sign? CROATOAN? How mysterious! Here is contact information for the Roanoke Colony. That's all we know. In my next video, I'll be visiting the early black powder groups.